Good morning. How you doing? Are you here? Do you want to be here? No. Okay. Moving on. Clostridium species. Now, this is the one that you really, if you want. Somebody asked how we study for all these diseases. Clostridial diseases, a lot of them present very similar. So, your best bet would be to make a chart. Okay? And where we can, get pictures and put in there so that you can see. Most of the clostridial diseases, or most of these diseases that I've gone over, you can do, biosecurity is going to be a big factor. And how you take care of the rest of the herd, especially when you can't treat the individual. But let's do an overview. Shall we? Nah, that'd be good for a test. Okay, these are obligate anaerobes, large rods, spore forming. Some are already in the animal's intestinal tract, and some will be acquired through ingestion. In some animals, they can become carriers and actually shed the stuff in feces. This just give you an idea of where they're found. They are found, all of these are found everywhere. They are ubiquitous, however you want to pronounce it. Ubiquitous. Say what? It's up to you guys. Clostridial species are extremely opportunistic. So why is this important? It's important because when you go out here to deal with these animals, they will either die suddenly, or if you do a necropsy, you need to do it under, let's see, at least, well, you only have up to 2 hours after they have died. If you do it any time after the 2 hours, and actually even at 2 hours, depending on how hot it is outside, other Clostridium will take over, and you will have a very, very difficult time in trying to determine which Clostridium caused the problem. So, if you're going to use necropsy to determine what you're dealing with, you need to do the necropsy in freshly dead animals. Prognosis is extremely guarded because these are fast-growing, and not necessarily fast-growing, but they release a lot of toxins. So the best thing to do overall is prevention and control. And we do that through vaccination and properly disposing of carcasses or animals that die. And in the instance where some of these diseases have vectors associated with them, then we need to control the vectors. The most effective antibiotic across the board for Clostridium, penicillin. Especially if you give it to these animals early on. Predisposing factors, virulence factors, and such, you have to have some type of primary injury or it's a management issue. None of these are contagious. However, they can contaminate the pastures. And in some instances, contaminate the feeds. What kind of animal is this? What kind of pig? Baby? No, it's a potbelly pig. It's a potbelly pig and the runs they sell for teacups. And then they end up growing up to be 40, 60 pounds. But anyway, types of major infections you get with Clostridial diseases are either invasive or non-invasive? The invasive ones are the ones that they pick up the spores and the spores start to proliferate and spread all over the place. Non-invasive ones, and there's a couple of them, is when the animal ingests or gets contaminated with a preformed toxin. So you have invasive, non-invasive. Okay, what do you see? Skinny piggies. Okay. These are about a week old, a week to 10 days old. What do you see? Diarrhea. Yep, kind of a mucoid. And if you look real close, this is not a good picture, it's kind of yellowish in color. What else? Emaciated, yes, what else? Dull, dead, well, you said emaciated. And if you look kind of close on some of these, it almost looks like they have open mouth breathing. Okay, this is caused by enterotoxemia, Clostridium perfringens. That one is going to be fun to get to. But before we get to the fun one, come on, next, we get into the other ones. There's a whole bunch of these guys. The Clostridium perfringens has about 3 different types that we deal with, and that's B, C, and D. This is just a chart. I'm just kind of going over it. It's in the notes, but if you want to sit there and type it out, that's fine by me. You should have got an email this morning that said, here's some stuff, you're going to get some more tomorrow. Because it turns out it's 26 pages. And I'm on page 20. But I'm trying to put it, okay, if I did it the way it came off of these slides, it would be short, sweet, and to the point. However, when I converted my slides to notes, it didn't make sense. It didn't even make sense to me. But because I knew what I was talking, what I wanted to cover, I had an idea. But for you, so I had to put it so that it was in sentences. And I had to tie ideas together. So that's why it's taking a little bit longer. But you will get them. But anyway, this is if you put stuff in a chart form, a general chart form, you get an idea real quick in a hurry with different types. Like perfringens has actually 12 types, but there's only 3 or 4 that we really deal with on a regular basis. And if you put stuff like that in a chart form, then you get a grasp of it quicker. Then add all the other stuff to it, like what the toxins do and all. Okay, what do you got? What species? Small ruminants. Say that. All right. But for those of you that deal with small ruminants, what species? Look close. It's a ram. Yeah. So you're dealing with the ovine species. This is a common occurrence in unvaccinated rams, especially when they're out with other rams. They like to butt heads, fight, go after people, trucks, whatever. And usually this is what ends up happening after they get scratches. And if the spores are in the area, it looks nasty. Severe. Think it's painful? Yeah, extremely painful. And all of this is actually necrotic. In the early stages, even in ewes like to fight a lot. I'll tell you what the disease is, but if you can guess it, just toss it out there. Even ewes, when they fight or if they scratch themselves when they're trying to go into hay bales and stuff, can end up with clinical signs such as this: swelling around the eyes or the head and neck. Big head disease, yeah, look at you. Okay. Also known as gas gangrene. Gas gangrene in any animal, but it's called big head disease in sheep and rams. And it's caused by type A novii, Clostridium novii, type A. But you can culture out types B or C in these guys. But look at that. It's horrible. Extremely painful. These guys are extremely depressed, don't want to eat, and it's almost like, and a lot of owners will tell you it was acute onset. thought they were fine this morning. But that evening when they go to feed them, they're swollen or they're not feeling real good. And they can have a fever as high as 103. Type B, you get the endospores that germinate inside damaged tissue. And usually it's tissue that usually occurs in the liver and it's associated with flukes. So the flukes go through, damage the tissues, produces an anaerobic condition, and the spores germinate, turn into vegetative cells, and as they're turning into vegetative cells, these vegetative cells, or as the vegetative cells are growing and multiplying, it releases the toxins. And then it further enhances the necrosis of the tissue by decreasing blood flow to the tissues and actually devitalizing the cells directly. In sheep and goats, and sometimes in cattle, when you see this, what you will see on the outside or in the tissue that's vitalized, the covering pelt, everybody know what pelt is? Hide, skin, okay. If it happens underneath the skin, like they get a puncture wound and then the bacteria starts to grow, it devitalizes all the tissue underneath, and then what you see, if it's a light colored animal, you'll see it darken over that area. It'll be hot to the touch, painful in the early stages, and then it gets cooler or cold later on. Rarely see it in horses and pigs. It can occur, but you rarely see it. And it's called black pelt disease. So when you see that discoloration to the skin, think black pelt disease, novi, B. Black. Anyway. Black disease can also, when it infects the liver, it's associated with two things, flukes, snails. And these snails are about the size of a pinhead. What happens? I'll tell you. Usually these are cattle that are kept in areas where it's very wet, poor drainage, and then you get an abundance of small snails, Limnaea species. The Limnaea actually harbor the mesocardia of the fluke. Cattle go down there, this is where the best grass is being grown, so they're going down there and they're munching and crunching, but they don't know that half of that crunch that they crunch is snails. They ingest the mesocardia migrate to the liver, grow into the flukes, and then it's the young flukes that travel all throughout the liver, leaving racetracks, road scars, and all this stuff. And as they migrate out of the GI tract into the liver, they'll either go through the intestinal wall or most likely to go through the intestinal wall. I'll leave it at that. I ain't gonna get too, we'll keep it simple. As they're migrating into the liver, either the spores are already there in the liver because maybe the cow had indigestion and some of the ingestion backed up into the sphincter Oddi and into the common bile duct and into the liver. Or when the little mesocardia started migrating all through the tissues, they dragged some spores with them and carried it into the liver. So, one or the other. These are the flukes, like little tags of tissue. Looks the same color as the liver. Awesome. Fasciolidae are the ones that we deal with most often, but any of the flukes can cause it. And they're found within the common bile duct. They actually cause the mechanical damage and the spread of the spores. Wherever these guys track, they're tearing up all this tissue, and they move pretty fast. I forget how many millimeters a day, but they move pretty fast. They can cause a lot of damage. But all that damaged tissue has a disrupted blood supply, so there's no or a decrease in oxygen, makes a nice anaerobic condition for the spores to germinate. And in these instances, you can see sudden death with no prior clinical signs. They do fine, then you see them lagging behind. Oh, let me call the doc. They go in, call doc, and if they're standing there watching them, they'll see them go sternal and then fall over. That usually happens summer and early fall. That's when the peak fluke season is, and also when the snails are moving about. And you may or may not see jaundice. Which of these signs suggest pain? Hyperesthesia, okay. What else? Kyphosis. Anything else? Tachypnea could, yes. What else? Spasmodic twitching of the ears, yeah. Okay. With any of the clostridial diseases, you get rapid putrefaction. So, we want to make sure that we do those necropsies quick and in a hurry. With this disease, or novii type B, you can actually get blood-stained froth in the nose and mouth. If you find an animal that's dead and has blood-stained froth in the nose and mouth, what do you have to rule out? Anthrax, yes. It can also happen with perforations. Any of the Clostridium can cause this. But when you see that, you need to think anthrax first. Keep yourself safe, keep the public safe. When you do your necropsy, what you will find are areas of necrosis, and it looks like little yellow patches underneath the capsule. But when you cut through that, you'll actually see how deep it actually goes. So really nice. If you take that, well, let me ask you this. Where, if you thought you were dealing with Clostridium species, where would you get your samples? You're doing a necropsy. Where are you going to get your samples? Where in the liver? Two places, right off the bat. If it's associated with flukes. No, not everybody got a gallbladder. Okay, you're looking at the liver, and actually when you look at the liver, if there are flukes associated with it, you'll see dark, irregular streaks throughout, underneath the capsule. If it's Clostridia that's associated with those flukes traveling, then you'll see necrotic areas. What would you do with the liver? Where would you get your samples? The necrotic area, so you can do an impression smear or a swab, and then wherever you see those dark tracks, that's where most of your bacteria is going to be. Okay? Or spores. Neat, huh? So impression smears of the necrotic zone, and we can also culture that necrotic lesion. If you don't see the fluke, you can also do an ELISA to determine what fluke you're dealing with. You can also confirm your diagnosis of Clostridium by demonstrating the toxin in the peritoneal fluid or the liver. If you do it in the liver, then they'll get a nice big chunk, because what they do is they grind it up in sterile saline, and then they run it through the chromatograph to determine what toxin you're dealing with. And they can determine that it's Clostridium novii type B, and based on your presentation, you're dealing with what disease? If y'all remember. Big head disease, or what? Huh? Gangrenous or gas gangrene, yeah. Okay, differentials, not only anthrax, but also blackleg, sudden death. These guys bloat within 2 hours. So, and if you have a lot of swelling, it could be malignant vena or enterotoxemia. Any of the clostridials. What can you do for these animals that you find? It depends on the extent of the damage and how severe the clinical signs are. The more severe the clinical signs, the poorer the prognosis. That are showing mild to moderate clinical signs, you can go ahead and attempt to treat. The first thing is getting antibiotics on board, high doses. You're talking about 30,000 international units to 66 international units of penicillin. If it's a pig, IV is the best way to go. So, owner may not may not take the option of treating the pig. But in cattle, where you can get cattle or small ruminants where you can get a IV catheter in, that's the best way to go. Hit them hard and aggressively. You're also going to add anti-inflammatory drugs on board. And what I usually do, I've only seen one case of this, I'll give them some DMSO. But Banamine is going to be the big thing to give them, and that will stop what? Or it will alter what? Pathway. Arachidonic acid pathway. So it'll help in reducing the inflammation that way. The other thing that you may have to do is give these guys fluids. IV fluids are the best way to go. You want to be aggressive about your fluid therapy. And what this does is two things. It dilutes out the toxins, and it keeps the animal well perfused. Okay? Other thing, if you think you may have flukes associated with this, then you want to treat them for that. And chlorsolon is the big treatment for flukes. If you know what bacteria you're dealing with, what type, then you can get your hands on the toxin or the antitoxin, then treat them with the Anacera also. Prognosis, guard it, regardless of what you do. So if that individual animal makes it, or if that individual dies, what's your next concern? The herd. So you've got to go and trace around that pasture and try to find out if there are any low-lying wet areas. Get down there and kind of scrape around and see if you see some snails. You can actually take some of those snails and submit them to the diagnostic laboratory, and they will culture out the Metacicaria and let you know if there are flukes associated with it. Outside of that, if the owner doesn't want to opt for that, because that can, depending on where you're at and what they do, the prices can vary. So what you do is they'll go out and get some molluscides and treat that area. Better than that, because a lot of these molluscides are toxic to the animals themselves, we just cordon off that area. Keep them from going there until we can get somebody in there to drain it. The other thing is vaccinations. Because what's killing the animal? The fluke, the snail, or the bacteria? The bacteria. So we've got vaccines against novi. So you want to talk to your owners and educate them on vaccinating their animals. Case in point, we had a lot of blackleg toward the beginning of 2017 and the beginning of 2018, because people were selling all these cows and they were putting in the least amount of money so they could get the most amount of profit back. One of the things that they did not do was vaccinate. So we had herds of 60 where animals were dropping dead left and right. Every day they would find one or two. It gets expensive. We finally convinced the people to go ahead and vaccinate. The problem we had was, depending on the stage of the disease, especially for blackleg, you may or may not have crepitation associated with the swelling. Same thing with malignant edema. You may or you may not have all the swelling. So you have to sit there and try to figure out how you're going to educate your client. And the best thing to do is, if you think you're dealing with a clostridial problem that can be handled by vaccinating, culture, and then show them the results. This is what you got. Oh, it's cheaper to vaccinate. Then anything that dies, you want to remove it immediately and dispose of, usually by burning. But some people will bury them in lined pits. Problem with that is what? If you bury these guys, carcasses, let's say 6 feet under, line it with them, what's a potential problem? Well, if there's any water source nearby, you contaminate the water source. But what else? We got a lot of them running around. Wild animals will dig it up. They don't care if there's lime or not. If they're hungry, they'll dig up those carcasses and drag them all over the place. Okay, any questions about big head disease? Okay, what time is it? Oh, shoot, we're just getting started. Bacillary hemoglobinuria, also caused by Clostridium novii. Now, can you get a feel for why a chart would be great? Okay. Now, this is type D. Type D results in bacillary hemoglobinuria. Same problem, you may or you may not have the flukes, but bottom line is what you end up is with a cow that has a hemoglobinuria, which we call port wine. If you see a cow or a bison that has port wine urine, what 3 diseases should jump right out? Pardon? Anaplasma? What else? Clostridium? What else? That's been dogs for it. Huh? Lepto? Maple leaf toxicity is another one. Cows can get it too. Cows don't get maple leaf toxicity as easily as the monogastrics do, but they can. Say what? Rhabdo, if you're dealing with horses and stuff, yes. Cantharidin toxicity. I've not seen it. Hemoglobinuria associated with cantharidin toxicity, even in cattle. Okay, but cows can actually get rhabdomyolysis. Why or how? They're out in the pasture. Cows are slow moving, like to take it easy. Then all of a sudden, something enters into the pasture. A herd of wild dogs. Something scares them, or a thunderstorm rolls in and scares them, and they start running. They're not used to running, so they overuse the muscles, wrapped up. Yes? Sure. Okay, one of the things that you need to be able to answer, are flukes required in bacillary hemoglobinuria? I like to ask that question or something nearby. Flukes can be associated with it, and the other thing, you need to know which diseases flukes are associated with. And bacillary hemoglobinuria is one of them. But you can have cattle that are kept in feedlots that develop bacillary hemoglobinuria. Never been down near a swamp area at all. So, how would this occur? If you don't feel like looking it up, it'll be in the notes. But this is what the port wine urine looks like. When it comes out, or it's agitated, becomes frothy, and that's because of the high amount of protein that's in there. Neat, huh? They can be found dead acutely, or when you run them up into the stalks or the chute to work them, they'll drop dead. They can also drop dead or fall off the needle while you're treating them. But if you do happen to see these guys alive, while they're still alive, they have moderate to severe depression. They're pyrexic. They can get a temp as high as 107. They have difficulty breathing. Why would they have difficulty breathing? Lack of oxygen due to the severe anemia. Or these guys can have dysentery. It's a high mortality. But we do have subclinical conditions that are possible, especially if we treat these guys. We can have carriers. Carriers is highlighted dark red. Any of these diseases throughout all the ones that I'm talking to you about, or have talked to you about, or I'm going to talk to you about, that are in the notes, you need to know which ones are also carriers or resulting carriers. And usually the carriers that happen in bacillary hemoglobinuria are the ones that develop an immunity. So they themselves won't show any clinical signs until they get stressed. Pathognomonic, what does that mean? What is a pathognomonic lesion? Yeah, it's a clinical sign that's almost guaranteed to be present whenever you have that disease. Okay? So with bacillary hemoglobinuria, you see port wine urine, you need to start thinking bacillary hemoglobinuria, or in fact, that's it. Bacillary hemoglobinuria needs to be a part of your differential list, as well as pyroplasmosis, especially if you're in Texas or in the Midwest. You need to include pyroplasmosis or anaplasm. Lepto, if you're in the Northeast. And this is not a good picture, but it's the only one I can find. The biggest thing is when you open these guys up and you're dealing with the liver, or you're looking at the liver, you'll see raised or elevated areas. And underneath that elevation, when you look at it, it's actually pale in coloration. Please note, this infarct has a bluish red zone, as opposed to another disease that has a yellow necrotic zone. You need to know the difference, or which ones they are. Okay? There are vaccines that are available for this. So we vaccinate these guys. If there are flukes present, or they're an area that have flukes, then we need to put them on chlorsalon as part of their routine anthelmintic regimen. And if there are areas that are low lying and or poorly drained, then we need to keep them away from that, or at least treat that area with mollucides to kill off the flukes. So you need to control the flukes and the snails. But the big thing is isolate. And then for any carcasses that are there, what do we do with them? I'll cut off a couple of steaks and then burn the rest, right? Owner's going to ask you, especially if doctors, only around the head swelling, only around the head neck. Look at all that meat on it. I'm just going to get me a couple of steaks off of it. What are you going to tell owner? Basically, you're going to die. You know what this is? I don't say this often, but you need to drive it home that they cannot eat that carcass or any part thereof, because the toxins are there. And some of these toxins are not heat labeled. Okay? Especially when you're talking about, well, we'll get into that later. Okay. What else? Okay, things you need to know. Bacillary hemoglobinuria type B. Under type B, Novii type D. You have bacillary hemoglobinuria. It may be associated with Fasciola hepatica and a snail. Under Novii type A, gas gangrene or big head disease. Type B, Black's disease or the infectious necrotic hepatitis. Don't worry, we'll get to them. That's just a summary of Novii. Now we go into the muscles. What's one big muscle disease dealing with Clostridium? Black leg. Yes. Can horses get it? Can horses get it? How many say no? Or no, let me put it, how many say yes? They can get black leg. Doesn't happen all the time, but a horse can get black leg. And when they do, It is an extremely painful, fatal myelonecrosis, and it ain't pretty. And if the owners opt to treat these guys, it's extremely expensive and it's extremely involved. And I'll show you some pictures real quick before your time is up. But yes.
Clinical signs for horses with black legs. I know cows, the only definitive diagnosis is taking muscle tissues.
Yeah. For horses, what we do is we'll do, especially when if we can find an area of swelling, we'll do a fine needle aspirin. And we'll try to get them to culture it. So they'll do slides and then they'll try to culture it. If there's enough fluid that's there, like in the peritoneum or in the surrounding tissues, then we'll take that fluid and send it out and have them do PCR or ELISA. That's a good question now. Okay, so basically something that you'll see on the test will be like, oh, you got a farm about 60 head of goats, in which there have been multiple sudden deaths and illnesses. You got swelling and inflammation around the wound that you find. Crepitus, maybe, I'm not sure, but it's hot. But right when was treating some of the ones that the leg was cold. So as it progresses, that hot swelling that you'll feel initially will become cold. And then within a few hours of them showing clinical signs, they're found dead, regardless of what you do. So once these clinical signs set, you are, picture yourself running down a hill, being chased by an avalanche, trying to take care of this animal. That's about what it's like. Okay, you're gonna run over, you're gonna run out of steam, or in other words, the animal's gonna give up, or you're just gonna get run over. It's an overwhelming, fatal disease. I like to ask, what's your next step after I give you these things? All of these, hint, all of these are in every case that you see on these slides is in your notes. I can't tell you nothing else. Okay? Y'all don't get it? Y'all ain't got it. Okay. Let's get to the key stuff. And y'all had black plate before, so these are all things that we review it, know it. In people, it can happen also, especially if they scrape themselves. You're talking about the veterinarians, they're in there doing all they need to do, and they get all this, and as they're all day long, they get sore clothing, or maybe they cut themselves, or brace themselves. Spores enter in, and poof, you end up with all this swelling. People can die of this too. Okay? And it's called malignant edema in our case. But you have all these guys, septicum, Shovii, perfringens, novii, cervili, they're all over the place. We're going to talk about malignant edema first. In malignant edema in cattle, you see it in animals that are less than 2 years of age. And they get multiple swellings. What do you have to rule this out from? Lymphosarcoma, snake bite, bee stings, wasps, okay? Differentials, malignant edema, black leg, cellulitis, border disease. Don't forget about the exotics, but the exotic diseases are always last. Supportive care is going to be the big thing. In sheep, you can get a suppurative or basically a mucopurulent or purulent abomascitis. I spelled that right. Y'all don't catch these things. Come on, they're out there for a reason. Okay, in the horse, and this is the one you need to, this is profound. If this doesn't make this disease stick to your brain, then nothing will. And if a horse gets infected with this Clostridium septicum, they get a severe myelonecrosis. And when you cut through that overlying skin, this is what you see. It almost looks like gel. Okay, but that's edema. That's all that proteinaceous fluid that's in there. But look at the muscle that's underneath. It's not red, it's dark. When this happens in horses, it happens fast and in a hurry. It is extremely painful. That limb is hot to the touch. It does not pit. And this is what these horses look like. You can have it in the chest, you can have it in the leg, you can have it on the neck. Sometimes it's due to subcutaneous administration of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, such as phenylbutazone. Why? Ooh, that's a good question. You write that down. The question is, with a subcutaneous injection, not on purpose, but it was accidental, of phenylbutazone, you end up with myelonecrosis. Mm-hmm. But why? I'll let you figure it through. But anyway, this is the horse that we had, saw it down there in Oklahoma. It was awesome. He was like a $100,000 thoroughbred. They wanted to do everything. He was insured for like a couple $100,000, $500,000, something like that. I can't remember. I just looked at him and saw, wow, that is so cool. Look at his neck, it's so huge. He can't breathe. I'm shoving stuff down his face to get him to breathe, trying to stabilize him. Really doesn't do much. By the time we got the catheter and stuff in on the other side, surgeons came in, took a look at him and said, we're going to go to surgery. Meanwhile, we took some samples and stuff, sent them out. It takes about 2 weeks sometimes for the stuff to grow up. But we put them on. The big thing was getting the antibiotics on board, high doses. Getting anti-inflammatories on board, high doses. Pain relief on board, high doses, because horses, they continue to get stressed, they're going to go downhill even faster. And then we get fluids therapies and stuff on board. They took him to surgery and they did fasciotomy. They went through, did a fasciotomy. The first fasciotomy would open up to relieve the tension of the skin, drained all that stuff out of there, scraped out what they could, and let it air dry. Why? Why air dry? Yeah, introduce oxygen into the wound. Okay, sometimes, these couple of incisions you do are enough. Okay, he blew up again. So they had to go back in and repeat the fasciotomy. So basically, he looked like this. This is the horse, one of the horses. This is not the horse that I dealt with, but it's very similar to. So the horse, when they finally finished, he had these many lacerations and stuff on there. Every one was a drain. And we had to flush him every day. And we flushed him not just with sterile saline, but we also put crystalline penicillin in a lot of them. And it took about, when he finally walked out of there, didn't lose his feet, didn't colic, knock on wood, they had spent like $15,000. Yeah.
That was due to iron rejection or is it natural infection?
This is IM injection. It just migrates. Clostridium doesn't, the question was, is this an IM injection or natural infection? This is an IM injection. Basically what it does is you introduce something underneath the skin. It causes a lot of irritation. You get a lot of swelling. And the tissue underneath dies because of the chemical or the compound that you put in there. And you just set it up. When you introduce the needle, you introduce what? The bacteria or the spores. Yes?
So I know, so it's a banamine specific, the banamine's chemical makeup specifically causes these Clostridium to sporulate and release these endotoxins and stuff. Can you see this for vaccines too? I know a lot of vaccines go in.
Some of the vaccines can too, yeah.
Okay.
You don't know which one is going to happen. Haven't seen too many. I haven't seen any of them, but I've heard of it happening. Anytime that you're going to take a needle, push it into an animal, break that skin, you're introducing spores and stuff. I don't know how much alcohol you put on there. Unless you do it aseptically, even then you run a chance of introducing a spore. It also has a lot to do with whether what the hosts or the animals' immune system is like too at the time. Okay? But banamine and phenylbutazone, those are the two biggies.
Yeah.
The other one is glucose. Causes a lot of irritation. Glucose in and of itself will cause cell death in large concentrations. So you get that cell death, you get the anaerobic condition set up. If there's spores in the area, poof, there they go. And we'll end there. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. How can you tell where his neck is? But this is malignant edema in pigs. Okay? And it's ugly. So, but again, I got this really nice pig. He weighs about 250, solid muscle. You can see the muscle bulging on him. It took me at least 4 months to get him that way, and I'm getting ready to take him up, for a show. I can't get my money back, so why can't I eat it? No, sir, you're gonna have, y'all laugh if you want to, but you're gonna have people, producers, especially first-time owners of animals, don't have a clue about diseases, are gonna ask you that. Just like those people that wanted to sit there looking at that horse going, dang man, we can get a steak off of that. And euthanasia, he killed him, didn't he? Yeah. Well, shoot, we can get a steak off of that before all that stuff gets to it. Really? Okay. But I say all this to show you this because I keep bringing it up because you are the expert that's on the place. You are the one that is responsible for educating the client. How you do it, that's on you. Oh, heck no, man, look, you eat this, you and I are through. I'm writing it on here. You're dead. You're dead. I told you he was going to die. You ate it anyway. I have nothing more to do with you, and I fire you as a client. You can tell him like that, or you can just look. You know how you get that roadkill? And it looks good? Oh, he must have just died. Look, he's no rigor mortis is set in. And you cut into him, like, well, I'll just throw that piece away. Guts exploded on the inside. I'll just wash it out real good. And they find you dead, or severely ill within a few days. That's about what you're going to be like. Oh, you're going to be dead. Anyway, so, look, I mean, it sounds funny and stuff, but with infectious disease, you got to educate your client. That's a lot of meat. You're going to die, you're dead. No, you're just dead. But anyway,